Have you ever had your entire life destroyed? Not by a scream, but by a laugh? A single familiar laugh. One that instantly told you the person you trusted most had become a complete stranger. I never imagined that after 27 years of marriage, I'd discover my wife's biggest secret outside my own family, standing just a few feet away, unable to believe what my ears were hearing. But the most unbelievable part? The man she betrayed me with wasn't some coworker. It wasn't an old boyfriend. It was my own son-in-law. And when everything was over, neither of them saw my revenge coming. If you've ever wanted to see betrayal answered with true justice, not violence, but perfect karma, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and stay until the end, because this story proves that patience can become the sharpest weapon a broken heart ever holds. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 55 years old, and until that Thursday morning, I believed I had built a life most men would envy. I lived in a quiet neighborhood where children still rode bicycles until sunset, neighbors borrowed lawnmowers without asking, and everyone greeted each other by name. After 30 years as an auto mechanic, my hands carried permanent scars from busted engines and rusted bolts, but they had also built an honest living. My wife, Elaine, had stood beside me through nearly everything. Or at least, that's what I believed. We had one daughter, Emily, the greatest blessing either of us had ever received. She had recently married Ryan, a clean-cut financial consultant with polished manners and an easy smile. He always called me Mr. Harper, opened doors for Elaine, and never missed a family dinner. I trusted him. More importantly, I trusted her. That morning had begun like every other. Elaine kissed my cheek while pouring coffee. "I'm getting my hair done," she said casually, slipping on her sunglasses. "Then lunch with Claire. Don't wait for me." I smiled without looking up from the newspaper. "Have fun." She smiled back. The same smile I'd fallen in love with almost 3 decades earlier. If someone had stopped me right then and whispered that those would be the last honest words she'd ever speak to me as my wife, I would have laughed. Around 11, I loaded a gallon of exterior paint into my pickup after leaving the hardware store. The biggest decision occupying my mind was whether to repaint the porch trim before autumn arrived. Normal thoughts. Ordinary thoughts. The kind of peaceful thoughts a man has when he believes his life is secure. The quickest route home passed through Emily and Ryan's neighborhood. I wasn't planning to stop. I simply slowed down the way every proud father does when passing his daughter's home. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. Elaine's silver sedan, parked crookedly beside Ryan's driveway, half on the grass, half on the pavement. She was supposed to be getting her hair done, then eating lunch. Emily was working a 12-hour hospital shift. So, why was my wife's car sitting outside my son-in-law's house? I immediately searched for innocent explanations. Maybe Emily forgot something important. Maybe Ryan needed help moving furniture. Maybe there was a plumbing emergency. My mind desperately built bridge after bridge across a canyon it refused to acknowledge, because accepting the alternative was impossible. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Instead of pulling into the driveway, I parked quietly along the curb. Something deep inside me, a primitive instinct older than reason, whispered, "Don't let them know you're here." I stepped out of the truck. The paint can suddenly felt much heavier than it should. Each step toward the side of the house seemed strangely loud, even though the neighborhood itself was silent. Then I heard it. Not shouting, not arguing. Laughing, her laugh. Not the polite laugh she used around strangers. Not the forced laugh she used during neighborhood barbecues. Her real laugh. The one I'd heard across 27 Christmas mornings, family vacations, hospital waiting rooms, birthday parties. The laugh reserved only for the people she truly loved. It drifted through Ryan's half-open office window. Then his voice floated out. Low, comfortable, intimate. "You've got to stop texting me while Emily's around." Elaine laughed again, then answered with 6 words that froze the blood inside my veins. "Let her notice. I don't care." In that instant, the man I'd been just 30 seconds earlier ceased to exist. Those 6 words echoed through my head like a hammer striking steel. Let her notice. I don't care. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the gallon of paint through Ryan's office window. For one terrifying moment, I couldn't even breathe. The world became strangely quiet. Birds still chirped. A lawn sprinkler hissed across the neighbor's yard. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked happily. Life continued exactly as it always had, except mine had just ended. My fingers tightened around the paint can until my knuckles turned white. The metal handle dug so deeply into my skin that I barely noticed the pain. Inside the office, chairs scraped softly across the hardwood floor. Ryan chuckled. "You worry too much." Elaine answered with the confidence of someone who had repeated the same lie dozens of times. "We've been careful." Careful. That single word cut deeper than any insult ever could. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It wasn't one drunken night they both regretted. It was organized, planned, protected by lies. Weeks, maybe months, possibly longer. Every fake lunch, every shopping trip, every girl's afternoon. Every time she kissed me goodbye, she had already decided someone else deserved her smile. I slowly stepped backward, careful not to make a sound. Even after discovering the truth, some strange instinct kept telling me not to let them know I'd been there. Not yet. I reached my truck and climbed inside. The moment I closed the driver's door, my entire body began shaking. Not crying. Shaking. The steering wheel blurred as my hands trembled uncontrollably. I drove 3 blocks before pulling into an empty church parking lot. The truck rolled to a stop beneath a large oak tree. Only then did I finally allow myself to think. My wife, my son-in-law, those 2 people had destroyed 2 families with the same secret. My marriage. My daughter's marriage. Emily had absolutely no idea. She was probably caring for patients at the hospital, smiling at coworkers, texting her husband during lunch, completely unaware that the 2 people she trusted most had been laughing behind her back. The thought made my stomach twist. For a split second, rage took over. I imagined storming back, dragging Ryan out of the house, demanding answers, watching neighbors gather outside, watching Elaine try to explain the impossible. But just as quickly as the anger arrived, it disappeared. Because anger gives guilty people something valuable. Time. Time to invent excuses. Time to rewrite history. Time to make themselves the victims. No, if I confronted them now, they would deny everything. Ryan would claim I misunderstood. Elaine would cry. They would both manipulate Emily before I ever had the chance to tell her the truth. I couldn't allow that. Not after what they'd done. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and stared through the windshield. My breathing slowly became steady again. Years spent repairing engines had taught me something important. You never fix a machine by swinging a hammer at it. You diagnose the problem. You gather evidence. Then, you make one precise repair. That was exactly how I would handle this. When I finally reached home, the silence inside the house felt unbearable. Every family photograph on the wall suddenly looked fake. 27 years of vacations. Anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas mornings. Were any of them real? Or had she been pretending far longer than I'd ever know? I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad. Instead of grieving, I started writing. Dates, conversations, late-night errands, canceled lunches, unexpected visits to Emily's house. Every memory that had once seemed ordinary now rearranged itself into evidence. The more I wrote, the clearer the pattern became. This affair hadn't appeared overnight. It had been growing in the shadows while I was busy believing my family was unbreakable. Then my phone buzzed. "Elaine, lunch with Claire is taking longer than expected. I'll probably be another hour. Love you." I stared at the message. There wasn't a single truthful sentence in it. She wasn't with Claire. She wasn't at lunch. And love wasn't something she had any right to mention anymore. After nearly a minute, I finally typed back. "No problem. Take your time. Love you too." I hated every letter I wrote, but she had to believe I knew nothing. Because revenge isn't about acting first. It's about acting at exactly the right moment. And as I looked at that message one last time, I made myself a promise. They had spent months carefully building their lies. I would spend however long it took, building the truth that would destroy them both. People think betrayal announces itself with lipstick on a collar or mysterious phone calls in the middle of the night. The truth is far more dangerous. Real betrayal hides inside ordinary routines. It's tucked between grocery receipts, fake appointments, and perfectly rehearsed smiles across the dinner table. For the next 2 weeks, I became an actor in my own home. Every morning I kissed Elaine goodbye before she left. Every evening I asked how her day had been. Every lie she told was delivered with such effortless confidence that, if I hadn't heard the truth with my own ears, I might have believed every single word. Claire says hello. We spent forever at the salon. I helped Emily organize the guest room. She lied the way most people breathe, naturally, without hesitation, without guilt. And every time she spoke, I found myself wondering the same terrifying question. How long had this version of my wife existed? Was this woman a stranger I'd only just met? Or had she been hiding behind the face I loved for years? The hardest part wasn't pretending with Elaine. It was pretending with Emily. She called every Tuesday and Friday like clockwork. "Dad," she'd say cheerfully, "Ryan burned dinner again." Or, "Mom keeps bringing us casseroles. I think she's trying to make sure we never learn how to cook." She laughed. I laughed too. At least I made the sound. Inside, every word felt like another knife twisting deeper into my chest. Emily had absolutely no idea that the two people she trusted most had turned her entire marriage into a cruel joke. One evening she asked, "Dad, you've seemed quiet lately. Everything okay?" For a second I almost told her everything. The words reached the back of my throat, but I swallowed them. "I'm just tired," I replied. She accepted the answer immediately. Children don't expect their parents to lie to protect them. That innocence nearly broke me. After we hung up, I sat alone in the dark living room for nearly an hour, staring at the blank television. Every extra day I remained silent, felt like betraying my daughter. But exposing the affair without undeniable proof could leave room for excuses. I couldn't allow that, not when Emily deserved certainty instead of suspicion. The next morning, I began watching instead of guessing. I wasn't following Elaine around like a detective hiding behind newspapers. I didn't need to. Once I knew where to look, the pattern practically revealed itself. Every Tuesday she claimed to attend book club. Curious, I casually called another member I'd met years ago. Oh, the woman laughed awkwardly. "Book club? We stopped meeting almost 18 months ago." Another lie. Every Thursday she offered to help Ryan with home repairs. Funny thing was, Ryan rarely repaired anything. He usually hired contractors. So why did he suddenly need my wife twice every week? The answer was becoming painfully obvious. This wasn't passion. It wasn't romance. It was a schedule. A carefully organized routine. Their affair had become as predictable as a calendar appointment. One afternoon, while sorting laundry, I found a crumpled receipt inside Elaine's jacket pocket. It wasn't from a grocery store. It wasn't from a salon. It was from a boutique hotel across town. A hotel neither of us had ever visited together. My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. Strangely, the pain had begun transforming into something colder, something sharper. I carefully placed the receipt inside a folder. No shouting, no confrontation, just evidence. A few days later, I noticed an expensive men's watch box hidden beneath winter sweaters in our closet. The watch itself wasn't there, only the empty box. Ryan had started wearing a new watch around the same time. Coincidence? Maybe. But I no longer believed in coincidence. Every discovery added another brick to the wall of proof I was building. By the end of the second week, I had dates, receipts, photographs of her car outside Ryan's house, phone records showing repeated calls while Emily worked late shifts. Their lies weren't random anymore. They formed a complete picture. That evening, my brother-in-law, Marcus, came over after Elaine went to bed. He quietly flipped through my notes before looking up at me. "You've got enough here." I slowly shook my head. "No," he frowned. "What do you mean?" I closed the folder and looked toward the hallway where Elaine slept peacefully. "I don't just want proof." Marcus remained silent. I continued. "I want Emily to see the truth with her own eyes." His expression changed instantly. "You've already planned this, haven't you?" I nodded. The moment I heard them laughing behind that window, I paused, feeling the same icy calm settle over me again. My revenge had already begun. For 16 days, I carried a secret heavy enough to crush a man. Every breakfast, every forced smile, every fake "I love you." It all led to one morning. The morning I decided the lies would finally end. I woke before sunrise. Sleep had become something I remembered rather than something I experienced. My bedroom ceiling had become my closest companion, and every night the same 6 words replayed in my mind like a broken record. Let her notice. I don't care. Well, today, she was going to notice. I quietly walked into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of black coffee. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Birds sang from the maple trees. A newspaper landed with a soft thud on the driveway. Everything looked peaceful. It amazed me how normal the world could appear while someone's entire life was about to collapse. I picked up my phone and stared at Emily's contact for several seconds before pressing call. She answered almost immediately. "Morning, Dad." Her voice carried the same warmth it always had. It nearly broke my resolve. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "Any chance you're free this afternoon?" I switched shifts. "Why?" "I've got a surprise for your mom. I could use an extra pair of hands." She laughed. "A surprise? Since when are you the romantic one?" I smiled despite everything. "Guess an old man can still learn. What time?" "Meet me around 1. You got it." After hanging up, I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the empty room. "I wish there had been another way." At noon, I sent Elaine a simple text. "Running errands across town after the hardware store. Probably won't be home until dinner." The bait had been placed. Now I waited. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone vibrated. "Perfect. I'm over at Emily and Ryan's helping Ryan organize the garage. See you tonight. Love you." I read the message twice. Helping Ryan. The lie came so naturally that she didn't even hesitate. She had no idea Emily was already sitting in my truck, sipping iced coffee and humming along to the radio. I slipped the phone into my pocket without replying. Emily looked over. "So, where are we going? This isn't the road to your house." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "No," she laughed softly. "Then where?" I took a long breath. "Your house." Her smile faded. "What for?" I glanced at her before returning my eyes to the road. "I need you to trust me." Something in my voice erased every trace of curiosity from her face. She became completely silent. The 20-minute drive felt endless. Neither of us spoke another word. When we reached the neighborhood, I parked half a block away instead of pulling into the driveway. Elaine's silver sedan sat exactly where I'd expected. Crooked. Careless. Confident. Emily frowned. "Mom's here again?" "Yes, she's been helping Ryan a lot lately." I looked at her. "I know." She finally noticed something wasn't right. "Dad." Her voice trembled. "You're scaring me." I swallowed hard. "I need you to walk with me." We stepped out of the truck. Each footstep across the grass felt heavier than the last. The closer we came to the side of the house, the louder my heartbeat became. Emily glanced at me repeatedly, searching my face for answers. I couldn't give them. Not yet. We reached the office window. It was slightly open, exactly like before. I gently placed a hand on my daughter's shoulder. "Just listen." At first there was only silence. Then a woman's laugh floated through the opening. Emily smiled nervously. "That's Mom." A man's voice answered. "Ryan." Soft, comfortable, far too familiar. Then Elaine spoke again. Her voice wasn't the voice of a mother. It wasn't the voice of a faithful wife. It was intimate, playful, the kind of voice reserved for someone she desired. Emily's body suddenly went rigid beneath my hand. Her breathing stopped. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not." Tears instantly filled her eyes. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. Because there are moments when the truth is too powerful for anyone else to explain. Inside the room, Ryan laughed. Then came the unmistakable sound of a kiss. Emily covered her mouth. Her entire body shook violently. She turned toward me with a face I will never forget. The face of someone watching their entire world shatter in real time. "Dad," she whispered through broken breaths. "Please tell me I'm hearing this wrong." A single tear rolled down my cheek. It was the first one I'd allowed myself since the day I discovered the affair. I wish I could. Emily stared at the window for another few seconds. Then something inside her changed. The heartbreak disappeared. In its place came determination. Without saying another word, she walked straight toward the back door. I reached out instinctively. "Emily." But she didn't stop. She grabbed the handle, turned it. The door swung open. And within seconds, the carefully constructed world of two cheaters was about to come crashing down. Emily didn't hesitate. She didn't knock. She didn't call Ryan's name. She simply gripped the back door handle, turned it slowly, and stepped inside. I followed close behind, my heartbeat pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. The house was silent except for muffled laughter drifting from the home office. Every picture hanging on the hallway wall suddenly felt like a cruel joke. Family vacations. Christmas dinners, wedding photos, smiling faces frozen in moments that now meant absolutely nothing. Emily walked with slow, deliberate steps. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't crying. She had reached that dangerous place where heartbreak becomes something colder, something much harder. The office door stood slightly open. Ryan's voice floated into the hallway. I told you nobody would ever figure it out. Elaine laughed. A soft, confident laugh. The secret was easier to keep than I expected. Emily stopped just outside the doorway. For one long second, she simply closed her eyes. I could almost hear her final hope dying inside her. Maybe she'd been praying she'd misunderstood. Maybe she'd wanted one impossible miracle. Instead, she heard the truth. With her own ears. She pushed the door open. The room fell completely silent. Ryan spun around so quickly his chair nearly tipped over. Elaine jerked backward as though someone had thrown ice water across her face. Neither of them had enough time to hide the look of panic that spread across their faces. Emily stood perfectly still. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't sobbing. Somehow, that frightened them even more. Ryan swallowed hard. Emily, she raised one finger. Don't. Her voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. You don't get to say my name. Elaine stepped forward. Honey, this isn't what it looks like. Emily slowly looked around the room. 2 coffee mugs. 1 blanket tossed across the couch. Ryan's hand still resting far too close to Elaine's. She looked back at her mother. Really? Silence, so tell me. Emily continued. What exactly does this look like? Neither of them answered. Because there wasn't an answer. Only guilt. Ryan finally found his voice. We can explain. Emily gave a bitter laugh. No, she shook her head slowly. You can confess. Those are 2 very different things. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Finally Elaine whispered. It's been 8 months. 8 months. The words landed like a bomb. Emily stared at her mother. Blankly, then she whispered. 8 months. She turned toward Ryan. We adopted Cooper 8 months ago. Her voice cracked. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary 8 months ago. Another tear escaped. You held my hand while we picked out nursery furniture. She stopped herself. We were talking about having children. Ryan lowered his head. Emily took one slow step backward. Every dream she'd built with him was collapsing right in front of her. I wanted to catch her, to protect her. But some pain can't be softened. Some heartbreak has to pass through you before healing can begin. Ryan suddenly stepped forward. Emily, please. I never wanted to hurt you. She looked at him with complete disbelief. You never wanted to hurt me? Her voice grew louder. Then who exactly did you think you were hurting? My father? My mother? Yourself? She pointed directly between him and Elaine. You destroyed 2 families because you couldn't control yourselves. Ryan opened his mouth again. Emily cut him off. No, you've spoken enough. Then, for the first time since entering the room, she looked at me. Tears streamed silently down her face. Dad. I'm so sorry. Those words shattered me. She had done absolutely nothing wrong. Yet somehow, she felt responsible for my pain. I walked over and gently held her shoulders. You have nothing to apologize for. My voice remained steady. The only people who owe apologies are standing in front of us. Elaine broke down crying. Daniel, please, I made a terrible mistake. I looked at the woman I'd shared 27 years with. The woman I'd trusted with every dream I'd ever had. A mistake? I repeated quietly. Forgetting our anniversary is a mistake. Buying the wrong paint color is a mistake. An affair with your own son-in-law isn't a mistake. It's a choice. A choice you made over. I glanced at Ryan. And over again. The room became painfully quiet. No one had anything left to say, because the truth had stripped every excuse away. Emily slowly removed her wedding ring. She stared at it for several seconds, then placed it gently on Ryan's desk. I don't want anything that reminds me of this lie. Ryan reached toward her. She stepped back immediately. If you ever respected me, she said firmly, you'll never contact me again. Then she turned toward Elaine. For a moment, mother and daughter simply looked at one another. Years of birthdays, school plays, Christmas mornings, late-night conversations. Everything they had ever shared hung in that silence. Finally, Emily spoke. You didn't just betray Dad. You didn't just betray me. You destroyed the meaning of the word family. Elaine collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. But neither Emily nor I moved toward her. Some wounds are simply too deep for sympathy. We walked toward the front door together. Before leaving, I turned back one last time. Looking directly into Ryan's eyes, I spoke the calmest words I'd said all day. This isn't the end. It's only the beginning of the consequences. Then Emily and I walked out. Behind us, the silence inside that house was louder than any scream. The drive away from Ryan's house was almost completely silent. Emily sat beside me, staring out the passenger window. She wasn't crying anymore. She had cried all the tears betrayal could pull from her. Now, there was only numbness. The kind that settles over a person when reality has hit harder than the heart can process. I kept both hands on the steering wheel. For the first time in over 2 weeks, I wasn't pretending. The performance was over. The lies had finally been dragged into the light. After nearly 15 minutes, Emily spoke, barely above a whisper. "Dad, how long have you known?" The question I dreaded. I took a slow breath. 16 days. She closed her eyes. "You carried this alone?" I had to. She turned toward me. "Why didn't you tell me?" Every word felt heavy. "Because I needed you to hear the truth yourself. If I'd told you that your husband and your mother were having an affair, part of you would have wanted to defend them. You would have searched for another explanation. You would have hoped I misunderstood. You deserved certainty, not suspicion." Emily stared at me for several long seconds. Then she quietly nodded. "I hate that you're right." Instead of taking her home, I drove to my brother-in-law Marcus's house. His wife Olivia opened the front door before we even reached it. One look at Emily's face told her everything. Without asking a single question, she wrapped my daughter in the tightest hug I'd ever seen. Emily collapsed into her aunt's arms. The tears finally returned. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet sobs from someone mourning a life that no longer existed. Marcus walked outside. He looked at me. I simply nodded once. "It's done." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you." I shook my head. "No, I'm just exhausted." That night I checked into a small hotel across town. I couldn't bear the thought of sleeping under the same roof as Elaine. The room was ordinary. Gray walls, white sheets, a television I never turned on. For the first time since discovering the affair, the silence wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful. Then my phone started ringing. "Elaine," I ignored it. Again and again. By the 9th call, the screen almost looked desperate. On the 10th, I answered. Her voice cracked instantly. "Daniel, please, we have to talk." "No, please listen. I've listened for 16 days. You don't understand." I laughed quietly. "No, you don't understand. I listened while you laughed with him. I listened while you talked about how careful you'd been. I listened while you lied to my face every single day." Silence, then soft crying. "I still love you." Those 4 words meant nothing anymore. "You loved me once," I answered calmly. "But love isn't measured by promises. It's measured by choices, and every choice you made led you to him." She sobbed harder. "It was a mistake." "No, it was hundreds of decisions, hundreds of lies, hundreds of opportunities to stop. You didn't." Another long silence. Finally she whispered, "Can we save our marriage?" I closed my eyes. 27 years flashed through my mind. Our wedding day, Emily's birth, family vacations, anniversaries, everything then, that laugh behind Ryan's window. It erased every memory before it. "No," I said quietly. "What we had ended long before I found out. I'm just the last person to know." Then I hung up. She never called again that night. The next morning I hired one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. Not because I wanted revenge through money. I wanted peace. I handed him every piece of evidence I'd collected. Phone records, hotel receipts, photographs, dates, messages. He looked through the folder for nearly 10 minutes before finally leaning back in his chair. "Mr. Harper, I've handled hundreds of divorces. I've never had a client this prepared." I gave a tired smile. "I spent 30 years repairing engines. I learned long ago that documentation solves arguments." He nodded. "Your wife is going to settle. She won't want any of this becoming public." He was right. Within weeks, Elaine's attorney contacted mine. No dramatic courtroom battle. No endless legal war. She agreed to nearly every condition. She knew there was no defense, no explanation, no version of events where she could escape what she'd done. Meanwhile, Emily filed for divorce from Ryan. He tried calling her repeatedly. She blocked every number. He sent letters. She returned every unopened envelope. Flowers arrived. She donated them to the hospital waiting room. Finally, Ryan called me. "Mr. Harper." His voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard. I just want one chance to apologize. I remained completely calm. You had 8 months. What? You had 8 months to tell my daughter the truth. You had 8 months to stop. You chose neither. I loved Emily. No, I interrupted. You loved having 2 women. Those aren't the same thing. The silence on the other end lasted nearly 20 seconds. Then, he quietly hung up. He never called again. Months later, I heard something almost poetic. Elaine and Ryan had tried dating openly after everything collapsed. It lasted less than 3 months. Without lies, without secrecy, without stolen moments, they discovered they had nothing left. The relationship that destroyed 2 families couldn't even survive the truth. That's when I realized something. I hadn't destroyed them. They had destroyed themselves. All I did was open the curtain. People always ask me the same question. Did getting revenge make you happy? My answer surprises them every time. No, revenge didn't make me happy. It made me free. There's a difference. Happiness is something someone else can take away. Freedom is something you choose. And after 27 years of loving the wrong woman, I finally chose myself. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. It wasn't dramatic. There were no shouting matches in court. No last-minute confessions. No miraculous attempts to save the marriage. Elaine signed the papers quietly. The woman who once argued with me over where to hang family photos suddenly had nothing left to fight for. I kept the house. She kept half of our retirement savings. Money no longer mattered. The only thing I wanted was peace. When the judge finalized everything, I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter, as if I'd been carrying a backpack full of stones for months without realizing how heavy it had become. For the first time in a long while, I could finally breathe. Emily's divorce moved even faster. Ryan didn't contest it. There wasn't much he could say. Every excuse had already died the moment she walked through that office door. She moved back into my house for a few months. Her old bedroom still looked almost the same. The faded curtains she'd picked out as a teenager were still hanging by the window. Some nights I heard her crying through the wall. I never interrupted. Some grief isn't meant to be fixed. It's meant to be survived. Instead, every morning I made coffee for both of us. Sometimes we'd sit on the back porch without saying a single word. Surprisingly, those silent mornings healed us more than long conversations ever could. Little by little, I watched my daughter return. She started smiling again. Not often, but enough. She threw herself into her nursing career, volunteering for extra shifts and mentoring younger nurses. Then she started running before sunrise. The miles quiet my mind, she told me one morning with a faint smile. I nodded. I think your mother spent years running from herself. You've chosen to run toward your future. For the first time in months, Emily laughed. A real laugh. Not forced. Not broken. That sound meant more to me than any revenge ever could. One afternoon, nearly 6 months after everything ended, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Elaine. I stared at it until it stopped. A voicemail followed. Then another. Then another. I never listened. Some doors are closed with anger. Others are closed with certainty. This one didn't need another conversation. It needed silence. Permanent silence. Later I heard through mutual friends that Elaine had tried to rebuild her relationship with Ryan. It failed almost immediately. Without deception, without secrecy, without the thrill of sneaking around, they discovered they had almost nothing in common. The fantasy that had destroyed 2 families couldn't survive ordinary life. Karma hadn't punished them. The truth had. And the truth is always patient. About a year later, Marcus and I were repainting the front porch I'd neglected for so long. He handed me a fresh paintbrush and grinned. So, any regrets? I looked at the newly painted trim glowing beneath the afternoon sun. I thought about that day outside Ryan's window. About the legal pad filled with evidence. About 16 days of pretending. About the moment Emily heard the truth for herself. Then, I smiled. No, if I'd exploded that first day, they would have had weeks to invent excuses. They would have twisted the story. They would have manipulated Emily. Instead, they condemned themselves. Marcus nodded slowly. I never thought patience could be revenge. It isn't. I dipped my brush into the paint. It's justice. Today people often tell me I look younger. Maybe they're right. Pain ages you. Peace restores you. Emily has her own apartment now. She's happy again. She still visits every Sunday for dinner. We laugh. We tell stories. We've learned that family isn't defined by blood or marriage. It's defined by loyalty, by honesty, by the people who stay when staying becomes difficult. As for Elaine, I haven't spoken a single word to her since the divorce papers were signed. Not because I hate her. Hatred keeps people connected. Indifference sets them free. The house where Ryan once lived has new owners. Sometimes I drive past it. I don't slow down anymore. I don't look toward the office window. There's nothing there for me now. The ghost stayed behind. I didn't. I finally understood something that took me almost 3 decades to learn. The greatest revenge isn't making the people who betrayed you suffer. It's building a life so peaceful, so complete, that one day you realize you haven't thought about them at all. That's the day you truly win. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more unforgettable revenge stories, where patience defeats betrayal, and karma always finds its way home. Now tell me in the comments, if you were in Daniel's place, would you have confronted them immediately, or waited until the truth exposed itself just like he did? Until next time, remember this: revenge fueled by anger burns fast. Justice built on patience lasts forever.